Hi everyone. Welcome to the recording of the second session. The intention is to have these sessions recorded live. Just because we didn't decide from the beginning we are going to record, so I'm recording offline the first three sessions we did, and then after that it will be live. So last time we talked briefly about what is coding, different types of programming in Salesforce in terms of back end and front end. And we agreed that we are going to focus and start with the Apex development, which is the back end. I hope you got the chance to create a developer org so you can follow or try the code. Another thing, if you don't feel comfortable creating a developer org for yourself, maybe you can rely on Trailhead playgrounds. And that's when you log into your Trailhead, you can go here to your profile and you will write here hands-on orgs, or like you select it. And then here it will list for you all the orgs connected. I even connected my developer org for Code with Sally here, so it's easy for me to launch. But if you need to create a new playground, you can click here, create playground, give it the name you want, and you can start using it. Usually, I prefer the developer sandbox for studying because the playground will come sometimes with data loaded or some packages sometimes, or like some functionality already there for you. So feel free, whichever you feel more comfortable with. So if you have it ready, I would encourage you to open it, whether the developer sandbox or the playground. So when we start talking about some code samples, you can follow along. Today, we are starting by talking about what are variables. Uh, Variables are a very important concept that you need to know and you need to understand because it will be used in every Apex code you write. You will need to define a variable. It's a very simple concept. I would love to like think about it as if you have in your kitchen a box or a container or a jar for salt, another one for sugar. So the same variables are like containers where we store values in. And like in the kitchen, if you have one for salt and one for sugar, both are white and you don't want to be mixed up, you'll have a label on it to say it's salt or it's sugar. So you make sure you're using the right one. The same with variables, like when we decide if variable will store numbers or string text, we will always stick to the same type to be stored in it. And we give it usually a name, like we give a label to our jars, so it's easy for us to use. And we'll go through it more now and we'll see code so you can understand more. I have on my blog here uh, a blog related to the primitive data types, explaining in details what are the primitive data types, how to use it, and how to work with them. So I would encourage you to go and check it. You can reach it with the Salesforce basics or simply right here in the search primitive, and it will take you to the result. Here you'll find like the beginner's guide to Salesforce Apex primitive data type. So that will be a good one to read and go through. We have in the article here a lot of code samples as well that you can use and run. Uh, Next, I would love to compare it, give another comparison because sometimes like not everyone is in the kitchen or cooking. So something else like the Excel sheet, like here, I took a screenshot from an Excel sheet that I had on my laptop. I have a student name, enrollment, and amount paid. And this one accept dates only. This one is currency and accept amounts. Like I can write text here. And this is the student name. So the same idea, like you can consider a variable like a cell that will hold a value or variable value here. And you define for it like what's the type. And that's here what we do. Like any variable, when you define a variable in Apex, you'll start by choosing what's the data type. Then, for example, if I want to see for myself, what's my enrollment date, I go and say like check cell B2 using the column and the row. So you know it's 2nd of January 2024. And same if I want to say, see Adam Sam, how much he paid. So I will go to C3. So without having the column name and the row, it was hard for me to tell you which cell to go to check a specific value you're interested in. And that's the same here. For variables, we give it a name. It can be age, it can be name, amount, but it's how you will get to this storage or this container to take out the value in it. So you will have a storage or a container, which is your variable, and it will have values. So this containers, you need to know what values it can accept, like date versus numbers versus strings. And the same, you need a name for it so you can go get the value from this container. And next, we have here two important like concepts. Sometimes people will use it. And I wanted just to differentiate between the two so you don't feel like confused or like when you hear the words like it's new for you. Sometimes we say, I will declare a variable. And by declaring a variable, that means I'm deciding what's the variable data type and what's the name of the variable. Like here in this example, I'm declaring a variable called number of days, and the data type for it is integer. That means I know I will store only integers and integer value in this variable. Like I cannot put hello world in it. It has to be 1, 2, 3, an integer. And it's not a decimal point. Like I cannot put 3.5. Integer is a whole number. And if someone is wondering what the semicolon, we'll come back to it, but just to know, like it's, we said the coding or the Apex is a language to tell the computer what to do. And we communicate with the computer by the Apex statements. And for the code to know or the computer to know that the statement ended is like the full stop, we put a semicolon. Okay, so declaration again is that you decided, like if I have a jar, I got the jar and I decided that I put here sugar and I will label it sugar so you don't get confused. The same, but now my jar is empty. Like if I try to get anything from the jar or from my storage, it's empty. That will take us to the initialization. Initialization means like you got your jar, you give it, you decided what's the data type you put in, you give it a label, which is the name, but you put as well initial value, like 2 tablespoons of sugar added to the jar. And then I will go and get more and add it. So the same here, I define or initialize the variable, whole number of days, and the data type for it is an integer, and I put initially a value of 30. That means the container now has 30. Here, the declaration, the container was empty. And it depends. Sometimes in when you are coding, you want to have an empty value initially and then later on fill it. And sometimes you want to put something initially in it. So that's when you do declaration versus initialization. And in both cases, you can retrieve the value of the variable using the variable name, and you can change it as well. And we'll see that later on. Now, like we understood like variables, and that will apply for any language. We want to understand the data types that Salesforce Apex offer to us. You heard me saying data type is the first thing you decide, or what you would put in the container, like sugar or salt, same. Integers, decimals, and we want to understand what are the types in Apex. So in Salesforce Apex in general, we differentiate between two main groups. We have a primitive data type group, and we have complex data type group. The primitive data type, you can, from the name, it's simple. It will have a single value, like an integer, like age, string, it doesn't have anything complex. And the complex data type is more complicated. Like if I want to store somewhere uh, where I want to have complex data, like what's your name and what's your age. So it's a complex data type where I store two values together and it's not a single value. So that's the complex data type. Now we'll be starting with the primitive data type. That's what we will cover first. And later on in the sessions, we'll talk about the complex data types. And just a hint, like they are the collections, like you will hear people talking about maps, sets. So it's more complicated structure and it holds more data related together and it has its usage and it's very good to know, but we'll start simple and we'll build up on it. So we'll start with the primitive data types. Here, and you will find it as well in the blog, I have a like summary. I like to give summaries as much as I can or visuals that makes me know how to relate things together. So I split the or categorize the primitive data type into number types, which can be integers like whole numbers, decimal numbers, then text like your name, free text, hello world, regardless what you want. Then Boolean, we have that will store true or false. Then we have a category for date types, and that's where you can store date, date time, or time, and finally an ID type. We'll go through them one by one and we'll learn more about them. And before we're jumping into them, each type alone, uh, you along the way you'll hear me saying like we'll use the data type method. What's the data type method? Data type method is a built-in functions that Salesforce have for each data type that helps you to do specific operation or something on the variable you have. Let's say in a decimal number, sometimes you want to like round it. Or if you have a string and you want to get the first 10 characters only, or you have a string and you want to make it all capital letters or small letters. So there is a lot of methods out there available for us to use for the data types, and for each data type has its own. And it's very good always, and we'll see how to do that to check what are the available data types method. Like if I'm working with integers, what are the methods available for this data type? And the purpose of that is that it will save you time and effort because you don't want to always build from scratch a method that will take, let's say, character by character and make it small letter. The easier way would be if there is a method out of the box, let's use it. So that's what we want to get used to do because they are very useful and there is a lot of them, and each data type has its own methods. Let's start first, like with the numbers data type. As we said, the numbers data type from the name sounds like they will store numbers, but we have two categories. Like I can have how many chocolates you want. So I want two, and I don't allow halves. So that fall under the category of a whole number. But for example, what's your salary? Maybe it has a decimal number, or how much an item in the store. So a currency or a number will have decimal points. So it's very good to know when to use each of them. One thing as well, like for the whole number, you'll find we have an integer and long values. And I love to refer to the blog here about them because it differentiate between them in like in a table format, so it's easier to understand. So the integer, you'd say it's a smaller range. It's just not that small range, like it's from negative that big number to this positive number. But sometimes when you are working with a lot of implementation or like calculations, or like you're counting a lot of things or adding, you may need a longer or a bigger range, and that's where the long data type will come to use. It's a larger range. So, and as like the integer is smaller in size, it uses less memory. The long, because it's a larger number, it will use a larger space in the memory. So unless you need a very big number, a whole number, go always with the integer. Now let's try some samples. So I will open my developer org that I created. Let me log in here. And we'll be using the developer console for now. I hope from now, like everyone is trying to install their Visual Studio Code, because at some point we'll start using it and we won't be relying on the developer console. But for now, use the developer console. So let's go here and click developer console. And we'll open the execute anonymous here because I have logs, old logs. Okay. Debug, open, execute anonymous. I clear my screen here. And then let's start first by initializing an initialization for an integer. What we'll do, we said first, we say, what's the data type? So it's an integer. And then we'll say its name H. And I will say here 22. And then that means I did an initialization. If I did so, it could be a declaration only, but that's an empty variable. So I want to have an initial value, which is 22. Let's print it. And the semicolon, as we said, indicates that my statement ended. So let's try here, system.debug, and I will say here, check age as a message, and then age. Debug statements are useful when you are working on code with someone else and you have something that is not working as expected, or you want to see how what's the value or how your code changed a variable value from X to Z. So sometimes you need to add your debug statements to be able to see what is going on. So here I would be printing in my log, what's the age? And if you didn't have this checked, open log, check it, and then I will execute it. That will execute the code for me. And then I would choose here that I'm interested only to see my debug statements. And that will show me here that I have check age, and the age is 22. Um, Another thing is if you go here and you say integer Apex methods, that's how you can get to the method of each data type. You will write the data type, or you can use here, like the side here, the double, the decimal, the date class. So integer at the end is a class, and it has its own methods. Don't confuse yourself now. We'll learn more about classes and methods later, but just for now, know that for each data type, it has its own methods that we can use. Let's say here, I have one that is called value of. I clicked on it. It took me to the documentation. And the documentation here, it tells you that this one will return an integer. And between the brackets, that means the parameters this method is expecting. Here it expects a string, and you can just saying its name, and it gives you an example. Here, this is the parameter, a string, and the return value is an integer. Let's take this code here and try it in the developer console. And let me print it. So I print here my int. And this method here that is called value of, what it's doing is converting a string to an integer. Why would we need to do that? Sometimes when you integrate with another system, their data is coming as a string. So it is what it is. Like you have it coming as a string, but you need to do any addition, multiplication, division. So you need to convert it to an integer so you can manipulate the data or use it, or even because you want to store it in an integer or like a number field in your object. So that where we can use some of the method will be used by like typing the data type dot then the method, and sometimes by the variable, and we'll see that later. But here it's integer dot value of takes the string. The string is between single quotes, and we put it here in my integer, and I will execute it. Again, I see now it's 1, 2, 3, and that helps me, for example, to say my int equal my int plus 2. And let me print it again, update it. And let me see the value. I will debug it again, execute it and debug. The 1 to 3 became 1 to 5 because I converted the string to an integer and used it. You can play as well with the long. You can check here the blog, and the long, it has to have an L at the end. You can try using a long data type without the L at the end. It will give you an error. I will let you do that in your developer console and let me know if you got the different behavior. So that covers the whole numbers. The second part is the decimal. And the decimal is the numbers where we want to have decimal points. The difference between the two, like we had in the integer and the long, is the range. It's similar, like the double is 15 decimal places. It limits itself like to 15 decimal places maximum. The decimal is 18 decimal places. And what's the difference between that? For sure, smaller range, less decimal places. The double is less in memory. The decimal data type is more in memory. Being less range or less decimal points, the double is faster to compute. The decimal takes longer. Then when can we decide which one to use? It depends. Like the benefit of using decimal is the accuracy. So for example, if you are working in a financial institution and you're doing a lot of like mortgage calculations or payments, like every decimal points make a difference here, and it's important to keep track of it. So I had here an example. Let me take it and we can run it in the developer console together. One thing we went through the sessions was how I can comment my code, because I don't want to keep adding code and you get confused. So I can comment a line of code by doing that, \\/ for each line, or you can do \\* and at the end ***. So let me try the code that we got here. Here, what I'm doing is I'm trying to include this value in a decimal and the same value, which is a very long decimal points, 17, into the double. Again, let's remind ourselves, the decimal allows up to 18, but the double allows until the 15. So what the code will do is that in case of the double, you'll see that it will round the value. But here you will see the 17 decimal places not touch and no rounding. So let's run it. What I'm doing is I'm using the same value, assign it to once decimal and once to double, and I'm printing the result. So let's see. So you'll see here in the decimal, because it allows more decimal points, it's not rounded. I can see 396 at the end. But because the double, it rounds and it doesn't allow that much, or like maximum 15 decimal points, it got rounded from 9396 to 94. Someone will say it's not a big deal. If that's the use case and you don't need that accuracy, then for sure go for double. If you're working with any calculations that is very essential to have accuracy and very precise number, then go with decimal. It just, you need to know the differences, and then you decide which one you want to go with. Again, you'll see here I can go to the decimal. I prefer sometimes to decimal apex methods. Like you can use Google, it will open for you. So it shows like here that we have rounding mode and decimal methods. The decimal methods is abs, divide, double value format. So there is a lot of them. And the same for the double. Like if you search with the double, you will see it like here, the decimal, you will see double class. If you click on the double class and the methods, you will see that you have some methods available for the double data type. Let's try a sample here. Let's say I will do decimal and decimal value equal 3.456. And sometimes that's something you need to do, that you have a decimal. And what about the integer value? Like I don't care about the decimal places and I don't want to do rounding. I care about the integer value. So we have a method in the decimal. Let's go see it and we can come here and continue. Decimal classes, decimal methods, and we have one for the int value, this one. So here it says like description, it returns an integer value of the decimal, and here it returns an integer. So, and it gives you an example. So that's what we are trying to do now. And let's take this as well and run it. So I will do here, copy the one we have in the documentation. That's a good way, like you rely on the documentation, example of codes, you put it in your developer console and you try it. Like, let's print this system.debug. And here I do my decimal.int value. And I will do the same here, decimal value.int value. And the reason why I'm putting both of them, because here, if you're doing rounding, this one would be 2. Here, if you're doing rounding, this will be 3. But using the integer value, it will give you 3 and 1. So here, 3 and 1. So it doesn't care about like, what's the value you have, like 1.6, and it will be rounded. It doesn't round, it just gets you the integer part of the number. So you have a lot of methods you can play with for the decimal and the double. And it's a good exercise to get used to writing some code as well and get used to how to write it and how to debug if you have an error. And the next is a text data type, and that's from the name, like we keep in it, like it can contains a word, a sentence, like numbers within the string. So it depends like what you are using or what you are storing in it. The most important thing is to have the value in a single code. So let's try here a couple of examples too for the string. Let's comment those. For the string, let's try, for example, a sentence here. Here I created string, welcome text, and I put here is a sentence. It's not a single word, it's not a single character. So let's do system.debug, and we'll print here the welcome text. Same if I execute it and show the debug only, I will see that it will give me the welcome message. Another point here we were mentioning in the slide that you can use the plus sign to concatenate multiple strings. And let's try this together. Like it's not just for arithmetic operations, it's not adding two numbers, it can be used as well for string. Let's try, I would grab this code to make it easier for us. And I will use it. Like here, I have a variable that has first name, another one for last name, and here, welcome note, welcome to my online session. And then I want to have the name. Then between the first name and last name, I want space. So I put an empty space here, that I use concatenation. So I concatenate this string between the single quotes, then I put first name, and I put an empty space, then last name, and I will be printing this method, this message, sorry. So let's execute. And I use debug here. The debug here shows now, welcome node value, welcome to my online session, Sally El Ghul. So this is how we can do concatenation within strings. It's very useful because sometimes like you will have different strings or different like a fixed message, like the welcome message I have here, but the variable would be who I'm giving this welcome message to. Like if you type your name or if you're getting the name of a user, like it can be my name or yours. Another thing, just as an advice, sometimes people names their variables like X, Y, Z. I don't see that as useful, and I prefer usually to give it a meaningful name. So within the code, like if I'm reading here, okay, oh, I concatenate this message to the first name and last name, so it makes sense to me. And don't like judge that we have here 4 lines of code. Like in real life, you may have hundreds of lines. So the more you give meaningful names, it's easier to maintain, and you can consider it as self-documentation of your code as well. What do we have here on this set? Okay, so one more thing is like the string Apex methods. This one, like it's very interesting because there is a lot of different methods you can use. And I would encourage everyone like to go and play with them because there is a lot, like one to capitalize, change the first letter to just capital and the rest small, or abbreviate, or get me if a string contains another string and returns yes or no, like, kind of like true or false, or like delete white spaces, like if you have white spaces, or like do you want to check if it ends with underscore s, for example. So there is a lot of options. It's good to go through one by one if you have time, or choose the ones that seems interesting, and go to the documentation here. This, for example, tells you that a Boolean will be returned with end with, and it takes a string that we want to check if it ends with. So for example, here we have hello Jason, and then it does like s that ends with Jason, it will return true because the text has true here. So it's a good way to practice. Let's try a couple of them, and then I will leave it to you to explore the rest. And feel free anytime like to send me a message on Slack or LinkedIn or within the online sessions to ask about it. So let's say here, I will have here this one. This one, I want to welcome you everyone, but for some reason I want it in small letters. So what we do is we do here, this one I took copy and paste, it messed up the single quotes, so I'm fixing them. And here what I'm doing is I took the hello text and I used the to lower method. The to lower case, sorry, method. When you go here from the description, it says like convert all the characters in the string to lowercase, and it tells you that it's returning a string. So that's what I'm trying to do here. I will do, let's add here as well. Those are capital to make it sure or more obvious that it got changed to small letters. So let's do the execute now. And debug. So it's all small letters. So that's one of the methods that is very good. Why it's very good? Because sometimes you don't know the data that's coming from another system. Like it can be small or capital, or first letter is capital, and you have some sort of checks or validation. So you don't want to be comparing Sally with a small letter with a small letter, and it may give you unexpected values. So sometimes we say like, okay, convert everything to lowercase. It's not actually converting the data or your object content, like the record content, and just at the point when you are comparing, we are using the to lower to compare. So it's a good thing to try. Let me try those for you here. This one here, I have hello Salesforce. And we want to, I keep the values here so it's easier for me to explain and then we will execute it. But for example, sometimes I want to know how big is my text. So dot length will get you how many characters you have. Dot substring, for example, it tells you like, I want to start from index 6, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So from the S until the end, which is the 15, or like, yeah, until the end. So here, that's the how you can call it. And again, if you want, like here, there is different variation. Like you can get from start index to the end, or you can have a start and end. For example, if I wanted to get, let's not get this, so it doesn't confuse you, but I will get 3 characters or 4. So I would expect here that it will return from this S, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here to uppercase, we tried to lowercase. There is an uppercase as well. So let's execute this one. Okay, it's always good to see an error and how we can handle it, and everyone will have this when you are coding. So when you get this, when you're working with execute anonymous, it tells you where the problem, like line 3 and string exception, ending position out of bound at 4. So here, oh, okay, because it's not how many characters, it's their index. So this 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I want to reach until 10. So let's do that and do execute. Okay, so this one did here SALE because we did until 10. So 1, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it gets you until the 10 minus 1, which is the 9. And you will see it here, like index, like here, hamburger. So you start from the 4, 2, 3, 4. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 is the U, and until 8. Here 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's returned until the E, which is the 7. So that's how you can learn, like, and the same, like with me, I cannot memorize all the methods. So what I do is whenever I want to do some manipulation on a certain data type, I come here and like search for, open the data type I'm interested to work with and search for the methods and see if there is any that I would love to use or very good to use, or it's interesting, or it does what I want. Because sometimes maybe one of them won't do exactly what you want, but using one with the other can give you whatever you're looking for. And in the next session, we have at the end like a homework you can practice with. It's practice for changing a statement to another format using the string methods. And that would be useful as well, or it's good to try. Another one, and that would be our last example for today. And then I will leave it to you to look into the documentation, try and see if like there is other examples you want to try or different methods you want to try. So let me do here. I initialized here hello text with the same hello coding crew. And then I want to see if it contains like, does it contain like crew, the word crew? So let's say here execute. It will return true or false. So now because it has crew word, so it gave me true. Let's say here testing. I was searching if the word has testing, and I will try it, and it will give me false. That means it doesn't contain this string doesn't contain testing. So again, it's another way to do it. You will have other methods like trim to remove the white spaces in the string at the beginning, or the like trim. Let me remember. It removed from the end or the start or both. No longer any leading or trailing. So it's, yes, so it's beginning and end. Like here, hello has spaces at the beginning and at the end. So when you do the trim, it will be hello word without the spaces at the front or the end. So again, it's all just examples for you to follow and to know like how you can use the methods and how you can benefit from. Like, it's a good way to rely on these methods. It's not a good idea to rebuild what Salesforce has to you. So I would love you to give it a go and work on those. Read the article or the blog here on my blog related to the primitive data types. Try some more examples from the documentation. And next time we'll be talking about the rest of the data type, which is the Boolean, the dates, and the ID. Until we meet next time, I wish you have a great day, evening. And if you have any questions, reach out to me. I'm happy to help you. And if you are interested to join the sessions and you don't know how, ping me and I will let you know. It will be live, so it give you more options to ask and interact more than just watching. If not, you can come and watch the recordings moving forward, and you can send me questions anytime. Thank you so much. It was great to have you today, and looking forward to see you on the next session. Thank you.